Welcome to my world. Come on in and make yourselves at home. Welcome to my life. I know everything's gonna be all right. Welcome to my world. Oh, won't you come on in? Welcome to my life. It's known as the Tiger's Den. Greetings to all of my subscribers. I want to thank you for being with me for as long as you have, and the new subscribers that's coming on in. We want to say greetings and thank you for your time. This is from Toothless and the moderators. Welcome. to the Tiger's Den. Did you know that mental health is a family affair? It's a family affair. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. Well, one child grows up to be somebody that just loves to learn, and another child grows up to be somebody you just love to burn. Mama loves the both of them. You see, it's in the blood. Both kids are good to mom. Blood thicker than the mud. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. Oh, a family affair. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. Nobody wants to blow. Nobody wants to be left out. You can't leave because your heart is there. But you can't stay because you've been somewhere else. You can't cry because you look broke down, but you're crying anyway because you're all broke down. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. Well, it's a family affair. Hey, hey. Greetings and welcome to the Tiger's Den. This is the voice of Cheryl, and I am Toothless Tiger. As believe it or not, this time I was not on mute. I was actually sitting here just speaking to everybody. I want to say welcome, 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 and to all of the bushwalkers and the people in the trees and in the skies and on the beach and in the boat, in the mountains, wherever you may be. Thank you for tuning in. You know, what I do is try to give a few people to come in, but I realize really my constituency as far as coming inside of the chat is normally anywhere from 6 to 10 people, sometimes less, sometimes more. So I really don't have to wait a long period of time, but I want to make sure that I give everybody an opportunity that I know that's normally coming, an opportunity to be here when the show begins. I know that you guys know, those of you that are here, that this is truly what I love to do and why I came to YouTube for no other reason. Sometimes it gets a little discouraging knowing that people have been in and people have been out. But what you do is you be grateful for those that have stick to itiveness for whatever reason. Because after all, we do have to live in this world. And for us as a people, it is very, very hard to live freely in this world as we are promised. We have unalienable rights that we all were given. Unfortunately, some don't see that we need those rights, and they do everything in their power to stop those rights. Then we can't even have an open discussion because we don't own the airways, we don't own the news, or we get to hear a lot of bad things that we do and a lot of bad things that happen to us. But do we ever stop and think about the conditions in which we're in? And why do we only get the bad things? Why nobody care about the good? And if the children truly are our future, and we say that they are, If we never teach them any different than what we were taught, are they really going to be our future? What type of future are we looking at? Because right now it looks awfully grave to me. Just look at a platform such as this. Okay, they say we have, by the First Amendment, freedom of speech. But then they say they have the right with their corporations to have company policy, community guidelines, terms of service, ad friendly videos. And all we see and hear is people tearing each other apart. And then if we speak to any one group, particularly our group of people, then they say that we're being discriminatory and we're targeting people and we're leaving people out. I could be on YouTube doing craziness, making all kinds of donations, lying like these people do, just coming up with anything. Not me. I really came on here to share what I've learned out of 65 years of living. And I will continue to do that. Like I said, even if I have to talk to myself. Sometimes I talk to myself because there is no one to talk to. And no matter what people wonder, I do it because I do it. I am confident in who I am and where I am in life. There was a point in life where I thought everything was just beautiful. You know, you come on here and everybody had all the camaraderie and we supported one another. Oh, how did I find out that was not true? People are not supporting you. Some people are laughing. Some people are hating. And there are some people that really, really appreciate what you have to offer, no matter who you are. I stand in that line. And I offer what I have, and that's me. No greater gift than the gift of life. The ability to live it, comprehend as you go, seek knowledge, and you'll find it. Ask, and you'll receive. But if you sit back and wait on somebody to do anything for you, then you're sadly mistaken. And your life, my friend, foe, enemy, whichever, is going to be a sad existence. That's good. That's good, Maria. This lady is phenomenal in my mind. Gives of herself constantly, always thinking of others. Silent a lot of times, but she has a lot to say. And I honor the friendship. As I know y'all had a good time today with the baby's birthday being today. And I know y'all had a celebration for the homegoing of your aunt. So I hope you guys all got together and enjoyed each other and reminiscing on her beautiful legacy here in America. Regina, as I said, you guys are great. Multitask, do whatever you have to do. I'm going to continue to do what I do. And that's just bring my little program and sign off. So we're now at the last principle of the 7 Hermetic principles, which is actually chapter 13 of the book, the Kybalion. And it's about 3 pages. And when I finish with that, then of course we'll be talking about the destruction of the Asiatic family. And I'm going to be talking about that for a while. So although they have not approved my other videos to be paid, they probably won't approve these either. And you know what? Again, I really enjoy my Cash Apps, my memberships, and my Super Chats whenever I get them. But if I never, ever, ever receive a dime, I'm truly doing what I love to do. And if nobody listened today, YouTube is here for however long it's here. My videos will be available. Because one day, some of these same people who laugh and make fun of us, who just want to exist, they're going to need this information. And I want to make sure that it's available for whoever needs the information. For I believe that we all are human and there's only one race. But we're actually divided by nations, nationalities, ethnicities, and only in America, race, where we do the crayon thing. And we're not crayons. We're actually human. And we've contributed a lot to the world. If we don't tell our own story, we may be written out of the books. There have been people that existed that no longer exist, and they've been written out of the books. You see, no one knows if you're a believer when the Son of Man will reappear. Nobody knows that. Everybody wants it to be tomorrow. We in the last days. Well, everybody that died before us, they were in the last days, their days. And eventually we're not going to be here. But you want, if you have any kind of human decency, you want to be able to leave something for someone to grab hold to and to help them when they feel they can't go on or when everything looks like it's against them. You want to give them that ray of hope. That's what learning these 7 Hermetic principles and learning to incorporate them in your life. It's a must that you learn how to control you as an individual. Perhaps, just perhaps, this may not be the arena. Perhaps a podcast would be better. And perhaps I'll look into that. But the story must be told. And it will be told within the confines of whatever rules that they have to be given. But if talking about and uplifting my people is a community guideline violation, but it will let my video play, it just won't let commercials be on it because advertisers don't want to hear about the plight of my people, how we've been treated, how we are resilient and brilliant individuals and we overcome every obstacle that's been thrown at us. The very conditions in which we live that are deplorable right now is because of a system that's in place. A system that everyone knows about, but nobody speaks on because we can't talk about that. It's just not right. We can do it to you, but we can't talk about it. We can't acknowledge it until it's everlasting too late. Took me 65 years to get here, but I'm here. Like Drake said, started from the bottom, now I'm here. And it is well. So we're going to go with the 7th principle, which is gender. And it's a little convoluted, but it's not many pages. And then we're going to go on to the subject matter. So thank you guys again for being here, in and out. I know you're trying to listen as best you can. Do what you have to do. Because one thing about it, I appreciate you guys for going back and listening to whatever you missed. That means a lot. And we have 5 individuals. And if we can get one more like, I'll be very happy. We have 4 likes. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. I will be reading these things from the permission of the Fair Use Act. I am doing this for commentary, for education, for scholarship, for criticism, for conversation. You see, the way we resolve problems is we must first have what? A conversation. And then we have to pose questions and then answer those questions, trying to come to a consensus where we can come together and resolve whatever issues we may have. The great seventh Hermetic principle, the principle of gender, embodies the truth that there is gender manifested in everything, that the masculine and feminine principles are ever present and active in all phases of phenomena on each and every plane of life. At this point, we think it well to call your attention to the fact that gender, in its Hermetic sense, and sex, in the ordinarily accepted use of the term, are not the same. The word gender is derived from the Latin root meaning to beget, to procreate, to generate, to create, to produce. A moment's consideration will show you that the word has a much broader and more general meaning than the term sex, the latter referring to the physical distinctions between male and female living things. Sex is merely a manifestation of gender on a certain plane of the great physical plane, the plane of organic life. We wish to impress this distinction upon your minds for the reason that certain writers who have acquired a smattering of the Hermetic philosophy have sought to identify this seventh Hermetic principle with wild and fanciful and often reprehensible theories and teachings regarding sex. The office of gender is solely that of creating, producing, generating, etc., and its manifestations are visible on every plane of phenomena. It is somewhat difficult to produce proof of this along scientific lines, for the reason that science has not as yet recognized this principle as of universal application. But still, some proofs are forthcoming from scientific sources. In the first place, we find a distinct manifestation of the principle of gender among the corpuscles, eons, and electrons, and that's ions and electrons, which constitute the basis of matter, as science now knows the latter, and which by forming certain combinations form the atom, which until lately was regarded as final and indivisible. The latest word of science is that the atom is composed of a multitude of corpuscles, electrons, or ions, the various names being applied by different authorities, revolving around each other and vibrating at a high degree and intensity. But the accompanying statement is made that the formation of the atom is really due to the clustering of negative corpuscles around a positive one. The positive corpuscles seeming to exert a certain influence upon the negative corpuscles, causing the latter to assume certain contributions and thus create or generate an atom. This is in line with the most ancient Hermetic teachings, which have always identified the masculine principle of gender with the positive and the feminine with the negative poles of electricity, so called. Now, a word at this point regarding this identification. The public mind has formed an entirely erroneous impression regarding the qualities of the so-called negative pole of electrified or magnetized matter. The terms positive and negative are very wrongly applied to this phenomenon by science. The word positive means something real and strong, as compared with the negative unreality or weakness. Nothing is further from the real facts of electrical phenomenon. The so-called negative pole of the battery is really the pole in and by which the generation or production of new forms and energies is manifested. There is nothing negative about it. The best scientific authorities now use the word cathode in place of negative. The word cathode, coming from the Greek root meaning descent, the path of generation, etc. From the cathode pole emerged the swarm of electrons or corpuscles. From the same pole emerged those wonderful rays which have revolutionized scientific conceptions during the past decade. The cathode pole is the mother of all of the strange phenomena which have rendered useless the old textbooks and which have caused many long accepted theories to be relegated to the scrap pile of scientific speculation. The cathode and its cathode or negative pole is the mother principle of electrical phenomena and of the finest form of matter as yet known to science. So you see, we are justified in refusing to use the term negative in our consideration of the subject, and in instituting upon substituting the word feminine for the old term. The facts of the case bear us out in this, without taking their Hermetic teachings into consideration. And so we shall use the word feminine in the place of negative in speaking of the pole of activity. The latest scientific teachings are that the creative corpuscles or electrons are feminine. Science say they are composed of negative electricity. We say they are composed of feminine energy. A feminine corpuscle becomes detached from, or rather leaves, a masculine corpuscle and starts on a new career. It actively seeks a union with the masculine corpuscle, being urged thereto by the natural impulse to create new forms of matter or energy. One writer goes so far as to use the term it as once seeks of its own volition a union, etc. This detachment and uniting form the basis of the greater part of the activities of the chemical world. When the feminine corpuscle unites with the masculine corpuscle, a certain process is begun. The feminine particles vibrate rapidly under the influence of the masculine energy and circle rapidly around the latter. The result is the birth of a new atom. The new atom is really composed of a union of the masculine and feminine electrons or corpuscles. But when the union is formed, the atom is a separate thing, having certain properties, but no longer manifesting the property of free electricity. The process of detachment or separation of the feminine electrons is called ionization. These electrons or corpuscles are the most active workers in nature's field, arising from their unions or combinations, manifest the varied phenomena of light, heat, electricity, magnetism, attraction, repulsion, chemical affinity, and the reversed and similar phenomena. And all this arises from the operation of the principle of gender on the plane of energy. The part of the masculine principle seems to be that of directing a certain inherent energy toward the feminine principle, and thus starting into activity, the creative process. But the feminine principle is the one always doing the active creative work. And this is so on all planes. And yet, each principle is incapable of operative energy without the assistance of the other. In some of the forms of life, the two principles are combined in one organism. For that matter, everything in the organic world manifests both genders. There is always the masculine present in the feminine form, and the feminine form. The Hermetic teachings include much regarding the operation of the two principles of gender in the production and manifestation of various forms of energy, etc. But we do not deem it expedient to go into detail regarding the same at this point, because we are unable to back up the same with scientific proof, for the reason that science has not as yet progressed thus far. But the example we have given you of the phenomena of the electrons or corpuscles will show you that science is on the right path and will also give you a general idea of the underlying principles. Greetings, Phyllis. Glad you made it. Some leading scientific inventors have announced their belief that in the formation of crystals, there was to be found something that corresponds to sex activity, which is another straw showing the direction the scientific winds are blowing. And each year will bring other facts to corroborate the correctness of the Hermetic principle of gender. It will be found that gender is in constant operation and manifestation in the field of inorganic matter and in the field of energy or force. Electricity is now generally regarded as the something into which all other forms of energy seem to melt or dissolve. The electrical theory of the universe is the latest scientific doctrine and is growing rapidly in popularity and general acceptance. And it thus follows that if we are able to discover in the phenomena of electricity, even at the very root and source of its manifestations, a clear and unmistakable evidence of the presence of gender and its activities, we are justified in asking you to believe that science at last has offered proofs of the existence in all universal phenomena of that great Hermetic principle, the principle of gender. It is not necessary to take up your time with the well-known phenomena of the attraction and repulsion of the atoms, chemical affinity, the loves and hates of the atomic particles, the attraction or cohesion between the molecules of matter. These facts are too well known to need extended comment from us. But have you ever considered that all of these things are manifestations of the gender principle? Can you not see that the phenomena is on all fours with that of the corpuscles or electrons? And more than this, can you not see the reasonableness of the Hermetic teachings, which assert that the very law of gravitation, that strange attraction by reason of which all particles and bodies of matter in the universe tend toward each other, is but another manifestation of the principle of gender, which operates in the direction of attracting the masculine to the feminine energies, and vice versa. We cannot offer you scientific proof of this at this time, but examine the phenomena in the light of the Hermetic teachings on the subject, and see if you have not a better working hypothesis than any offered by physical science. Submit all physical phenomena to the test. and you will discern the principle of gender, either, ever, in evidence. Let us now pass on to a consideration of the operation of the principle on the mental plane. Many interesting features are there awaiting examination. And that is where we will end our reading tonight. The mental plane is chapter 14, and that's the mental part of gender. Know it's going to be interesting. Thank you, Phyllis, for joining in as you listen and learn. And as you state, I will agree. People love junk, but one day we may just need to notice stuff. We just might. I believe we do. Okay. Let's move on to the subject tonight that we're going to talk about. And it is going to be the breakdown of the family. I want to thank everybody for hitting the like button. I greatly appreciate that. It truly does help for engagement's sake. And as you can see, we're not just talking out of the side of our necks. We're going to be coming from the Northwestern Journal of Law and Social Policy. And this is Article 12, Volume 1. And this was issued one summer in 2006 by Christina White. Federally mandated destruction of the Black family, the adoption and safe families. So a lot of times, a lot of people have a lot of things to say about the very conditions in which we exist, in which we live, in which we operate. A lot of times, people tell you to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps and get it done and quit making excuses. But we're going to learn a little bit about how just very difficult it is to do that when you have studies. And these studies were done at, again, the university level, and it's a mandate. And as we'll see that as different laws come into play. So some of the things we do, true that, we can change our environment by changing the way we think. And that's why it's very important that I gave you the Kybalion. And I don't know if Maria still has it, but if so, Maria, drop that link to the Kybalion in there, and maybe you all can go and listen to the audio of the guy reading the book straight through. And it helps for me when I'm trying to learn something, and I don't know if everybody else do this, but I know I have to do it. I have to stop it and write things down and then go back and try to, either look up words so I can make sure that I comprehend what is being said, or look a little deeper into whatever they're saying. So the federally mandate destruction of the Black family, the Adoption and Safe Families Act. It's an act. Introduction. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to kind of skip through it, but we'll be going through it over time. So, we can have conversation about it. I think if we have a better understanding, because one of the things that we were not taught in school, and if we be totally honest, then we can probably see some of the downfall of our situation is because we were never taught law and history as it relates to each other so that our concepts would be correct. We were not taught politics. We only learned the three branches of governments. We were introduced to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, but we did not study that those articles of incorporation, and we didn't understand just what they meant to us in this place that we call a country and us as a people. We don't really comprehend that the 13th Amendment gave us freedom, so it's stated, but the 14th Amendment was created supposedly to give us what we call citizenship. A lot of times when we start learning about citizenship, which belongs to the states, and that's why you have this big fight between the federal government and the state government, there is this big dilemma, who are to control what. But each state has its own constitution. And what they're trying to get us to buy off into is when they created the state constitutions, then, most of us were supposedly enslaved. But you just have to go back and read your state constitution and see when it went into effect. But again, it's just articles to rule a corporation. So if anybody have ever formed a corporation or LLC or a partnership, nonprofit organization, you have rules that guide that. Just like here on YouTube, they say we have freedom of speech, but then their company policy comes and tells us by way of community guidelines and terms of service, that if you, and they're so very ambiguous that you can't really know when you're really violating their rules, because they use uh, plain statements like no hate speech, no this, no that. Okay, so what does that mean, honestly? No hate speech. When you got people on here and all they do is teach hate all day, like calling each other bitches and hoes, and then going and looking up people's information, their private information. That is also public, but it is public because of the transparency of the state federal laws. But it's private when you go and fill out an application and try to do whatever you do in the general course of working and living your life. And then they plaster it on here and everybody laugh and make fun, and it's ha ha he he, and it's funny. And the people that are doing that think that they're very safe in what they're doing, when in all honesty, they're not. They're not. And then, people get on here and then they want to form alliances. And, it's kind of like, what are these people talking about? You don't know them, they don't know you, but they get with someone and then they start talking under your clothes and calling you all these horrible names that you can't even imagine. Now, you can use that same language, but that's nothing you do in your everyday vernacular, because number one, you have a degree of integrity and honor. And everything you do, you must do it in honor. And if you don't do it in honor, then you're not living your best life. We learned in the chapter of polarity that all truths are but half truths. So you try to be as truthful as you possibly can. That goes back to that saying, I know you've heard the old folks saying, so some of the young, and that is, believe none of what you hear and half of what you see. Because really, your eyes can deceive you, and hearing is left up to interpretation, but then you don't know whoever brought you the story, how they're bringing you the story. I heard something last night that was rather disturbing to me, and I said, no, that's not quite the way that incident took place. I keep being accused of telling a story on YouTube that I didn't tell on YouTube. Someone else told the story. And the person that shared the story with me shared it with me and other people. Now, I don't know why they choose to keep putting me in situations that they know that are not true, but I can't do anything about that, nor will I try to. What I will do is continue to be me and live in the honor and integrity of who I am. You see, all that making yourself look stupid and crazy just to get a cash app or a super chat, Mm, what does that say to your self-worth? And if you have anybody looking at you, what does that say to the ones that depend on you? I'm not talking about these people that you don't know. I'm talking about the ones that you affect their lives. Hmm. My son can look at every video and be honored that his mother stay in the character of who she is. That's who I am. That's who I'll be. Albeit, if I'm talking to myself, I think I say some pretty good shit, so I'll just keep talking to myself. But as we go, let's get into this introduction so we can kind of understand each other a little better and see why a lot of us are on this app that have really some serious problems because of these situations. See, we can't say that this is how they're doing us and then excuse the behavior of the people that we know that are displaying some horrific behavior. And we all say that, these people are crazy and what are they doing and why are they saying this? When we learn this type of information, knowledge is power. For it's written, my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. Our people don't want to seek knowledge. They're all running after the bag when they don't realize there is no bag. Yeah, we have a medium of exchange for money. We do have a, Federal Reserve note. But trust me, money is silver and gold, and you would know that if you studied your Constitution. That's the only form of payment for debt. But again, you got to be in honor. And you have to study to show thyself approved, a workman rightly dividing the word of truth. There are so many things that are written for us to know, but we choose not to. And you have a right to choose not to. Let's not forget that, because it's all about rights, unalienable rights, unalienable rights. You have those rights. So if you choose to be nice, facetious, wicked, cruel, rude, disrespectful, harmonious, happy, all of those are choices left up to the individual. And ignorance of the law is no excuse because it is your ancient mothers and fathers who actually formed the foundations of the law. And if you don't know that, and most of us don't, it's very hard to get an honor because you're doing everything to please an unpleasable individual. You can't do it. You got to please you. And that's why this Kybalion is so very important for you to understand the laws of mentalism, the laws of correspondence, the laws of vibration. It's so very important to understand the laws of cause and effect, polarity. It's so very important to understand the laws of gender. For once you get into that, you will be delving into self. A lot of us have been through so many traumatic experiences that we think we've overcome. But you can tell by the audiences and how they gravitate to the things they do that it's a lot of hurting people. Let's find out why. When it comes to matters of the home, the constitutional provisions of the 14th Amendment give substantial deference to the independence of the familial unit to make its own decisions. There are instances, however, where the government deems it necessary to intrude upon the independence of the familial unit. This intrusion is especially evident in the foster care system. Although the system, by its very definition, requires some governmental intervention for the welfare of the child, the goal of foster care should be assistance and eventually reunification to allow the family to function as an independent entity. the Adoption and Safe Families Act, and they're going to be calling it the ASFA. That's what it's going to be referred throughout the document to, represents a stark deviation from the goal. With Black children representing an overwhelming percentage of the foster care population, the ASFA represents federally mandated destruction of Black families. The ASFA devalues the essentialness of preserving the familial, and that is it's family, familial, but I don't like saying that word because it's like I'm not saying it right, and I'm a stickler for words, and it's like I'm mispronouncing it every time I say it. So it bothers me. I don't even know why she wanted to say the familial. I don't know why she just didn't say family, but she had the right. She wrote the article. So I need to adapt to what she wrote. The ASFA devalues the essentialness of preserving the familial bond with regard to Black children. It advocates earlier termination of parental rights and makes adoption instead of reunification its priority. Do you ever wonder why could that be? Did you even know that that was even a possibility? A probability? That that's really how things are going? This comment criticizes ASFA and its aim of removing Black children from their homes as a means to achieve permanency in their lives. Preservation of Black families is essential to the advancement of the Black community. Legislation must be directed at addressing the underlying social ills that are at the root of foster care dependence, instead under the pretext of advancing child welfare. ASFA promotes destruction of Black familial bonds and represents a serious threat to Black communities. And so, we used to have communities, and we say that we don't really have communities now. We have hoods. And what do you do with hoods? Dick Gregory used to say, you wear a hoodie to hide something. So we're hidden inside of a society, and we don't matter. Not only don't we matter to others, we don't matter to ourselves. We don't understand why we're like this, some of us. And we're not seeking to understand. But if the children are our future, and indeed they are, and if we want them to remain what we believe to be free, and we do, then we got to start having these real conversations. I mean, it's really sad what happened to the people that has been affected by Diddy, and now they're saying TD Jakes, and they're naming a lot of different other people. I just heard some devastating news about Robert Smith and Tyler Perry with some young actor. I don't know if those stories are true or false, but I do know there was an agenda in 1972 to introduce to our communities the lifestyle of homosexuality. And so this should not come as a surprise to us as we're pretending that it is. And maybe some of us are not pretending. Maybe it's really a surprise to some of us. But we have far more issues. Those people have obtained heights that most of us will never obtain. Most of us don't even desire or even know that we could obtain such heights. They live on a level so above us, but yet it affects the people that are on our level. And we need to learn to communicate one with another on our level. So let's keep going. This comment begins by providing a brief history of child welfare legislation in the United States. Very important, y'all. Very important. It discusses the political tide of the country and political justifications for the creation of ASFA. And one of the things that I implore you to do is learn jurisdiction. We must know jurisdiction. You have impersonal jurisdiction, you have territorial jurisdiction, you have subject matter jurisdiction. We need to learn jurisdiction. It's very important. And it's the definition is so vast that individually, I was talking with Phyllis earlier, and we were talking about, when you need help. And she was reminding me of the scripture that said, we have not because we ask not. And a lot of us don't want to ask. Our actual situations and plight has gotten us so mindful and so proudful that we don't want to seek help. But we're interdependent beings, and sometimes we need help. There are certain things that only you can do, and that's why it's called self-help. So only you can do it. But sometimes you may need a little direction, because you could be doing the best that you can do. And if you're doing it wrong, you're going to get the best wrong result that you can get. That's what you're going to get. It examines its specific provisions and details how the legislation disproportionately impacts Black children and families. This comment also examines the socioeconomic factors of extreme poverty, incarceration, and substance abuse that plague Black communities, and advocates dealing with these situations through a holistic approach that works in conjunction with familial reunification efforts instead of against them. Finally, this comment argues that the termination of parental rights has constitutional implications. The legislation has an impact on substantive and procedural due process as well as equal protection rights. Although the comment does not attempt to pose a solution to the child welfare system, and remember what she said, they don't pose to offer a solution. It does advocate a shift in the focus of the system. So with that being said, that means if we know that this exists, then we should be trying to advocate for viable solutions. And we have all of these groups that come together in the name of us good Negroes, African Americans, coloreds, Blacks. I tend to say Asiatic Moors. They say that we have so many people fighting for us. What is the fight? You first got to know the problem. If you don't know the problem, you certainly can't offer a solution. And I'm sure there may be many of you that know about this, but I had not a clue until I started researching topics that I wanted to continue to speak on, since it seems everything I speak on seems to be some point of controversy. Every time I help people, I've always helped them in the capacity of non-profit. And I thought that this was an opportunity for me to do what I love and even make a profit. Not in my case. And it's okay, because they said if you do what you love, the money will come. If you do what you love, the people will come. If you do what you love, you will never work a day in your life. Not again. And that's what I do. What I love. Brief history of child welfare policy. In historical terms, state intervention for the protection of children is a recent development, particularly as it relates to children of color. Now, children of color, isn't that something? Children of color. I want to just take a look at something. I think I have them up here. I don't know if I still have them up here. Children of color. Where are my definitions? I had them earlier. I was looking at them. Earlier and I thought I still had them up. Looks like I took them down. But I want to just go because I want to. Okay, here it is. Where is the article? Here it is, right down here. Let's look at color. Children of color, they said. That's why it's very important when you start researching that you actually start looking up words, learning the definition of words. It really becomes important when you're dealing with humanity. These definitions come from the Henry Campbell's Black Law Dictionary, and it comes from the 4th edition. We want to look up color. Legally, color, an appearance, semblance, or simulacrum as distinguished from that which is real. A prima facie or apparent right. Hence, a deceptive appearance, a plausible assumed exterior, concealing a lack of reality, a disguise or pretext. And then it gives us case law. That's one of the good things about the older dictionaries. They give you case law. And I wanted to go so that you can understand, because she said colored. And then you look at the word colorable in law. That which has or gives color. That which is an appearance only and not in reality what is purports to be. Counterfeit. Feigned. Having the appearance of truth. Colored. And this is perhaps a definition that you really want to read and know. By common usage in America, and hear that, in America, this term in such phrases as colored persons, the colored race, colored men, and the like, is used to designate Negroes or persons of the African race, including all persons of mixed blood descended from Negro ancestry. And then they give you the case law that they actually use to make that determination. But where a state constitution provided for separate schools for the white and colored races, the term white race was held to be limited to the Caucasian race, and the term colored races to embrace all other races. But really, see, it's only one race, and that's the human race. So there is right there the beginning of the misnomer. And then they give you case law, Rice v. Gong Lum. And then it says, it has also been held that there is no legal technical signification to the phrase colored person, which the courts are bound judicially to know. And then they give you the case law. So, what you have to take from that is that you're not actually getting jurisprudence, you're getting color of law. And that's why it seems like nothing seems to go well for us as individuals, although we tend to think that it does. Let's go back to the comment, as she calls it. I won't keep y'all too long, but we got to do a little bit talking. Although the institution of slavery dismantled Black families, it also fostered a unique system that maintained and cared for Black children who were separated from their biological parents. When children were stripped from their parents and sold away to other plantations, the slave community as a whole took on the responsibility of ensuring these children were cared for. After emancipation from slavery and the ratification of the 13th Amendment, Black children were not welcomed into the formal child welfare system. They were excluded from the late 19th century orphanages established to rescue destitute immigrant children. Furthermore, Jim Crow laws prevented Black children from being cared for by the institutions of white society that tried to place orphans in adoptive homes. Even after such discriminatory laws were dismantled, Black children were still denied access to most formal child welfare institutions because they were undesirable to white adoptive parents. A few colored orphans asylums, and notice they put asylums at the end of the orphans when they spoke about the coloreds, existed, but they were overcrowded and generally inferior. Black people were forced to rely primarily on other resources, such as extended family networks and churches, to take care of children whose parents were unable to meet their needs. And with the church being such of the prosperity doctrine today, how many churches do we think would be available and willing to take care of the children? The majority of the churches that I know of would not. Now, I'm not saying that no churches would. We're talking about the time of today, not an individual church or institution. We're talking about the times of today, in the big mega church times. Many of the smaller churches is what carries the community, believe it or not, with very few people. But most of the people in the church are hardworking individuals, and they give faithfully, and they give out of the abundance of their heart. They may not even have it to give, but they make a way and make it happen. Okay? It was not until the late 20th century that the child welfare system allowed Blacks to participate in services that had long been reserved for the white community. So all we get to hear is all we want to do is be on welfare, and we're lazy and we don't want to do better, and we should not depend on the government. And that's probably true. We probably should not. But give us an alternative. And one of the alternatives that we are not taught, because we're taught to be happy just the way we are in the conditions that we are. And we're also given animal husbandry training to have us being great workers for others. We're not taught to use the creativity of what's inside of us and create a job for us, a business, a brand that everybody loves to speak about here on YouTube. We're not taught to do that as a people, but I tell you, that's what we need to be teaching our children: entrepreneurship. We should be teaching them how to use their hands, how to use their minds. A lot of people, children, love to play on these games, and we really talk against these games. And to some degree, the games are harmful. But to some degree, some of our children's minds are so far advanced that they understand this electronic stuff way greater than we do. And who knows, with these different streaming platforms, you could make an honest, decent living playing these very games. But we got to watch which games we play, because a lot of the games are geared toward Grand Theft Auto, stealing, and Fortnite, killing. That's what a lot of these games are doing. And I know that that's in a military type way, perhaps. And then we got the Westerners. They're, out there just shooting up a storm. So we got to be very careful in the games that we allow the children to play. At least be knowledgeable of the games, because those are very, 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 very popular games. So it is nothing that I can say on this tape that will do anything to their sales or their bottom line. I'm just saying, whatever games you allow your children to play, be mindful of what they're playing and know what they're learning, and then know the time that they're spending. And that repetition strengthens and confirms. And if that be true, then you have to limit the amount of time that you allow them to spend chasing, shooting, driving, whatever it is the game is that they're playing. We got to be adults and we got to be parents. Again, remember, the children, we say, are our future. The Adoption Assistance and Child Welfare Act of 1980 now, AACWA, served as the beginning of pivotal federal legislation in the modern day child welfare arena. So now they've been calling us the child welfare queens of all time, when we see that we're not really able to participate fully in a system until 1980. Now that doesn't mean that we were not getting some sort of welfare, because we all who lived in the projects remember the welfare cheese that some people talk about, standing in these lines, and the canned meats. I think that's what got me liking Spam. The commodities that they used to give. So we do know some semblance of, but we didn't understand, nor did we benefit from the system of welfare. Let's go on. The AACWA was the first attempt at providing federal funds to reduce the amount of time children spent in foster care. The government provided financial incentive for states to change child welfare policies and attempt to move children out of foster care and encourage permanent placement through reunification and adoption. This policy was influenced by the theory that disruption of the parent-child relationship causes a great deal of emotional damage. Therefore, the policy encouraged permanent placement with the family, either biological or adoptive, as opposed to the child becoming trapped in the system and spending a long period of time in foster care. One of the things that I know that foster care is offered today is any child that is in the foster care system, and certainly if the child is adopted. Now, I know that, I don't know if you're just in that system and if you've never been adopted, but I know in foster care system, I have two friends that were foster moms. And if you're in that system, then you get to go to any state school of higher learning at no cost. So you can literally seek education all the way up as high as you want to go at no cost. Now, is that a great payoff? No, it's not. You much rather have a loving family. But that is something that a lot of us don't even know. That's a possibility. So I'm not promoting any one or the other. What I'm doing is trying to educate and give you a little knowledge. If you know somebody in this situation, if you find yourself in this situation, if you were ever in the system of adoption, you have the right to go to state schools at no cost. Great, 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 Asatar. And then it goes on to say, with this emphasis on family preservation, the AACWA made kinship foster care a viable addition to the child welfare system. Kinship foster care occurs when relatives become foster parents for children in state custody. In 1979, the Supreme Court in Miller v. Joachim established kinship foster care as a means to deal with the increasing foster care population. The court ruled that kin are entitled to receive the same federal financial support for foster care. Because there was a time if you took in the children of other people in your family and you did it out of love, but you know it still costs money, you didn't get any help. So that's what that case helped do for us. As non-kin foster parents, kinship care and the concept of extended family child rearing originated in Africa and have been relied on by Black families throughout history. The child welfare system began to embrace this concept because it found there was less trauma and disruption in the lives of children placed with kin as opposed to children placed with non-kin. There was also evidence that the sense of family identity, self-esteem, social status, community ties, and continuity of family relationships in kinship arrangements was important to a child. The child welfare system therefore determined that children do better within their own families and that placement with kin should be given priority when possible. And that's true when you have people that live in honor and in truth. You know, one of the things that was written when you go and you seek the knowledge of the word through the Sun Book, some call the Bible, it says, they that worship me must worship me in spirit and in truth. A lot of us kind of separate those two things, and some of us don't adhere to either one of them. But that is really a true statement. Spirit, breath, and the assignment that your belief gives to spirit, and truth, honor, integrity, stating what is, not what is to be, not what I would like it to be, but what is. In addition to allowing for kinship care, the AACW required reasonable efforts to reunify families, although the act provided little guidance as to what constituted reasonable efforts. And that's where they get us with these definitions. And that's why it's imperative to have a legal dictionary so that you can look up and see what these words mean in law. When you're looking up words for legal purposes, you want to look up whatever the statute that you're coming from. You want to look at the definition that they give to the word, because that's going to be the legal definition. If the statute does not define a word, then you go to the law dictionaries. And there are several different law dictionaries. There are many, to be honest. Blacks is one, Bouvier's is another, Barron's is another. So they have several dictionaries that are legal dictionaries. And then if that doesn't do, then you go to your Oxfords or your Webster's, or the actual dictionary. And it is always good to do the etymology of a word, because what we learn in the law dictionaries is that the etymology of the word, which is the origin, when it started being used, the purpose in which it was used for, that's the law dictionaries are very in line with the origin of what the word means. And so that's how you define words in law. And you must define them in law when you're dealing with law. I am not an attorney. I don't give legal advice. This is not intended to be any of that. I just have learned in my studies and my practice of myself what I know, and I share it freely. And fact check me. I don't mind being wrong in any of these instances of anything that I share. Prove me wrong. I'm not telling you this for you to prove me wrong, but I don't have a problem if you find some updated information, because there is updated information that we're not privy to by way of Westlaw. They have the most recent current case law and some areas of the statutes that we are not privy to here online. So, by all means, fact check. I have no problem with that because I don't practice law. I'm not an attorney. I just study to show myself approved, a workman rightly dividing the word of truth. Okay. Although the act provided little guidance as to what constituted reasonable efforts, most states determined that such efforts included delivering social services. Caseworkers attempted to create an individualized approach with both soft and concrete services to treat families. Their services include instituting a plan of positive parent child interaction and problem solving within the home, as well as ensuring the basic needs such as adequate food, safe housing, and paid utilities had been met. Termination of parental rights was allowed only when the state's reasonable efforts to preserve the familial structure failed. Child welfare, as it relates to foster care, is intrinsically linked to general welfare policy in this country. Okay, it's going to get interesting. Although initially the AACWA was a success, with the foster care population decreasing by over 50% from 500,000 to 243,000 between 1980 and 1982. The decrease came right before a period in our history when homelessness, substance abuse, and HIV began to overwhelm the country. By 1983, the foster care population again began to rise, and by 1998, it had more than doubled. Expenditures for social service programs increased dramatically. Frustrated with the increasing economic and social costs of the welfare system, the country deemed efforts, including child welfare policies like the AACWA, failures. Wonder why. Wonder why. Now, during that time period, is during the time period that our neighborhoods were being introduced to crack cocaine. And of course, we heard of the virus, of course, the HIV virus that was hitting the LGBTQ community in the beginning. In the beginning. Tensions grew as the political tide was quickly turning to the right. Individual responsibility became a prevailing political value, replacing the idea of social responsibility. And if we're given jobs with benefits, we don't mind individual responsibility. That's misnomer too, that we hear about how we are lazy and we want to depend on social services. No, that's not true. Not of all of us. Many of us go to work and work every day. Many of us and make less than $20,000 a year in 2023. That is pathetic. That is pathetic. That was the core of the AACWA. In the general welfare arena, politicians vehemently attacked public assistance programs, and their attacks included a very strong racial element. That's why I asked a moment ago, wonder why is this so? Wonder why is it so that they call the services a failure? Racial elements. Oh, but we have one senator that was very, very, very rough. Very rough. And it affected us dearly. That's why I did the Voting Rights Act the other day. I did that for a reason. They may not pay me for it. I'm not advocating for one side or the other. What I'm trying to do is to get you interested in educating yourself, because we don't know our need to know. We just know of these things because we hear about them. We participate in them. We don't really know what we're doing. Some of us may know. So I'm not talking to you all. I'm not talking to the ones who's educated more than me, because I don't have much education, but I am doing and seeking erudition and learning along the way so that I can help anybody who's interested in wanting to know something different and how to change their condition. It starts in the mind. That's where it starts. It starts with self. It starts with love of self. And a lot of us don't even know we don't love ourselves. A lot of us don't know that. Others can look at us and tell by what we tolerate, who we choose to be around, who we share with, who we break bread with, who we mate with. But a lot of us don't know. We're just trying to be the best us that we can be. That's most of us as a people, I believe. I could be wrong, but I doubt it. And if I'm wrong, those are just my beliefs. Let's go on with the story. Okay. I got to figure out, well, where did I stop? They proliferated the racist notion that Black people were living off the system. Images of the Black welfare queen and the Black crack addicted mother spread throughout the media. Isn't that the way they changed the image of everything? The thing we know is pedophilia. Used to didn't look like us. Hi, Lacola. Thank you for joining me. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Used to be, it didn't look like us. When we heard stories of such atrocities, we used to always say, oh, well, we glad it wasn't none of us. Now, we didn't like that for anybody, not for one child. But the Ted Bundys and, the, what's his name? What's the clown? All of the serial killers that we knew of didn't look like us. They didn't. And we were not happy for not one person that lost their lives. But I swear to you, as a mother, and I just believe as a human being, we were just happy that they didn't look like us doing all that kind of stuff. But they changed the face, took the definition, and changed it from the medical books, the DSM-5. They changed the definition of pedophilia. Then they changed the face of pedophilia just a couple of years ago when the world was putting away R. Kelly. And everybody have their own belief and thoughts on R. Kelly. And you can have yours and I have mine. But he didn't go to prison for pedophilia. That's not why he went. It was, they said, from transporting a girl from one state to another. Trafficking. We really need to start paying attention to what's happening to us as a people. You know, it's kind of just like these bullies that's here on YouTube. They test their audience first. When they're getting ready to attack you, you can pretty much kind of tell who's going to be attacked next. When you hear them mentioning a name that they don't normally mention, then that's testing their base. And that's what they do in politics. They test us by throwing out ideas. Just like they do, throw stuff up against the wall to muddy the waters. And whatever sticks, that's what it is. That's what it becomes. Not saying that no one shouldn't be punished from whatever ill they suffer if it is a violation of another. Because the rule for the common law, God's law, nature's law, is to harm no one. If you harm not them and they harm not you, no harm has been done. But if you're harming people, then you need to pay. What do you need to pay? That's questionable. When we start really studying the Constitution and we really learn that everything is steeped in commerce, even criminal charges are steeped in commerce, then we really will. We really will, when we start learning truth, be a force to reckon with. And you got to do this in love, not hate. There's been enough hate. You got to do it in love. Let's keep going. These images supported the position that assistance programs were not helping people in need really rehabilitate themselves. They were providing a means for poor blacks to continue their destructive lifestyles. And you know, it's really sad because that's the way a lot of fathers feel about mothers that receive child support, or I should say any absent parent feels about a parent that receives child support, that it's not going to the support of the children, that it's going for the other parent's own personal gain and entertainment and whatever else that, you know, you want to say. I don't think we should have to have a system that tells us what to do for our children. It would be beautiful if we as parents can get together and say, okay, now if we was living together, they would be getting the benefit of both of our salaries. But since we're not going to be together, then I'm going to have to be able to give you this amount because this is what I can afford to do until I can do better. And I think if we share it in that consensus type of way, as well as coming up with co-parenting on visitation, that we could go a long way and have more healthier children than for us to be fighting and having someone else to tell us because they need to get fees off of what we're doing. That ought not to be. We say we're adults, but we continue to act like minorities, like minors, like individuals who can't handle their own affairs. So the government feels they have to handle it for us and make all the decisions. And we don't have a voice, even though we are supposed to have a voice. The people are supposed to run the government. The people in place in Washington are just supposed to represent us. The people that are in our state capitals are supposed to be a reflection of we, the people. But we the people in the preamble doesn't mean what we think it means. And you have to discover that for yourself. Very interesting reading. Very interesting. This burgeoning political transformation and desire to decrease reliance on welfare programs swept the country. It prompted Congress to enact the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act of 1996. That is also the act, you should know, that stopped anyone who was convicted for a drug offense of any nature. Uh, I know in the state of Texas, because remember, we have federal laws and we have state laws, but this is a federal law because you can't get federal funding if you have a drug conviction after this law went into effect in 1996. You can't get public housing, you can't get food stamps, you can't get welfare. And we wonder why we have so many homeless people. We wonder why we have so many unemployed people. We wonder, don't we? Otherwise known as the Welfare Reform Act, the Act. The Act was designed to eliminate federal entitlements and cut government expenditures and essentially dismantle the federally funded aid to families with dependent children. That's the AFDC program. That's what we used to call it here in Texas, and I guess they called it that throughout the federal program. Although the Welfare Reform Act was created to drastically cut social welfare expenditures, it left entitlements for foster care and adoption assistance programs uncapped. Uncapped. Did you hear that? The increasingly pervasive belief was that it was better to place children out of the home instead of working to correct the social ills that required states to intrude into the home in the first place. So now they find it better. Now they're going to take away the money from the parents, the family, but they're not going to take it away from the foster care system. And now it's better for us to remove the kids from the family. So they took away the money and the children, and they left it open to the foster system. And that's where we had a lot of, because I know some foster parents too that actually had children, and they would get the ones with the challenge, the physical challenge or the mentally challenged, so that they can get additional monies, and then they would build homes, buy luxurious foreign cars. Their children went to private schools. It's amazing, but we don't understand the dynamics. We just see the effect, but that's what cause and effect in the 7 Hermetic principles. If we start really studying and really start learning how to apply that to our lives and our way of thinking, it really has truly helped me, because I was really one of those one track minded. I was a little bit more open when I came here, but I've seen some progress even in being here. But one track, one way, blinders on, this is the way it is, and that's just that, and blah, blah, blah. No, 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 no. We were trained that way from the first day of school. We were trained that way. You see, it's written to train up a child in the way it should go. When it is old, it won't depart from it. But that word was speaking to the parents, not to an education system who says that they really don't care where we go. They want to keep us happy in the conditions that we're in. And again, I understand the brilliance and the resilience of us as a people, and some of us break through that barrier. But many of us are caught in the bubble, and we don't get out. And I just include me in the conversation because I was one of those who were fortunate enough to get out, to ask questions. You know, my mom used to tell me my mouth was going to get me in trouble. I had no idea it was because I would be telling truth, and nobody cares about truth. Nobody wants to hear truth, and nobody supports truth. Oh, but if you talk about somebody and call them all kind of names, oh yeah, they like that. Oh yeah, they like that. But no, don't you dare try to tell them to check themselves before they wreck themselves. To start with the man in the mirror if they want to make the world a better place. Because most of them don't. They just want the bag. The bag, the bag. What bag? We have no money. And if you studied the Constitution, you would know that. You would know the system that they have us caught up in. We could never win. I don't care how many millions you have. I have 13 million, and everybody laugh and think it's funny. Because everybody says she's never going to collect on that. Not today. No. But y'all don't know her. All I can do is tell you, like the old folks say, keep living. And she going to make it do what it do. And she ain't Ray Charles or Jamie Foxx. Let's keep going, Toothless Tiger. The increasingly pervasive belief was that it is better to place children out of the home instead of working to correct the social ills that required states to intrude into the house in the first place. Newt Gingrich, I don't know if any of you all on here is old enough to remember that name, Newt Gingrich, but I do. I didn't understand it at that time, so let me say that to you. You know, I really didn't. I didn't start voting until I graduated high school. Jimmy Carter, I believe, was my first vote. The Republican Speaker of the House at that time echoed this sentiment when he argued that government funds going to children born to welfare mothers should be diverted to programs that would put their babies up for adoption or place them in orphanages. Reflections of this sentiment are apparent in the Adoption and Save Families Act of 1997. You see, all of these acts, we really need to start dissecting what are acts. What are these things that these people are doing to us? What are they? The ones that we send to office to represent us. What are they actually doing to us and for us? We need to understand. We need to know. Everyone blames the victim for being victimized, but yet they say they don't when they become the victim. Then they understand the position of a victim. But until it happens to them, oh no, they don't have any empathy, no sympathy, no thought for the victim. How do I know I've been victimized? More than once in life. And it's always the same. It's funny when everybody else is watching you be victimized. But now it's heart-wrenching and heartbreaking. Oh, it's just so horrible and deplorable. Oh, it's just the worst thing that could happen for me to be victimized. And it is not funny, but I can't help but laugh. Because I know that pain. I know it oh too well. And it's good to see people have allies that they can comfort one another, because all of us are not lucky to have such an audience. And everybody comes to comfort you on the most foolishness of stuff. But it is well. I was actually built for this life. Didn't want it. Didn't even know it. But I live it graciously, proudly, honorably, and as they would call me, niggerly. For I am an Asiatic, Moabite woman. I am that I am. I shall continue to be. As I finish reading this, I'm going to get ready to close. We're not going to be too much more longer. I've made it a point. I don't really want to stay on here all these hours, and nobody's really listening or paying attention outside of my regular people. I know that they're listening, paying attention, and going to go back and watch it. So I will just spend just enough time to get a message out. And anybody that want to hear it can go back and look and listen. And if they don't, it'll be there for the day that you're going to want to know. What was that toothless tiger talking about? I might need to know what she was talking about because I got a situation and I don't know what to do. Number 3, the Adoption and Safe Families Act of 1997. Boy, is it going to get bad. The ASFA made adoption the core means of achieving permanence in the lives of children in the foster care system. Although the previous legislation, the AACWA, favored permanent placement and created some incentives for adoption, it still funded and focused on solutions that prevented child removal. The AACWA's initiatives were aimed at achieving permanence through reasonable efforts for reunification and maintaining the familial structure. ASFA, however, effectively eliminated the reasonable efforts requirement and focused on adoption as the best solution to ensure permanent placement of children in foster care. Maintaining the foster care system is a major expense, requiring a great deal of government resources. Okay. That's when you need to learn public and private. You got to know the difference between the public law and private law. And I won't define those tonight because I'm going to finish this section and then we're going to close out. But that's where we'll be taking up when we come back on Wednesday. Okay. So, let's see. Let me see what this is so I can make sure I start reading at the right place. Okay. I'll just start with this line. Rehabilitate families become a meaningful part of the foster care system. When it created the ASFA, Congress in effect concluded the reunification efforts were not worth the expenses, began strongly pushing adoption for foster care children. The House report from the ASFA recognized that adoption is an effective way to assure that children grow up in loving families and that they become happy and productive citizens as adults, which is not always true for some children. Some of the children don't even make it out of the home because of things that happen to them in those homes. But what do we know? With a new focus on finding foster care children permanent adoptive homes instead of rehabilitating families, Congress exponentially reduced its expenditures. The ASFA's focus on termination of parental rights and assistance for adoption has nothing to do with protecting children from abuse or neglect. Let me read that one again. Excuse me. The ASFA's focus on termination of parental rights and assistance for adoption has nothing to do with protecting children from abuse or neglect. To reduce costs, Congress shifted its focus from the concerns of the family as a whole to reducing the amount of time a child needs state support. Okay, here we go. the electric slide. The Adoption and Safe Families Act is designed to force states to quickly seek a hearing or termination to facilitate permanent adoptions rather than waste time and money on temporary solutions. Therefore, after parental unfitness has been established under the ASFA, states are required to hold permanency hearings and file a petition to terminate parental rights after a child has been in foster care for 15 months. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? And we say slavery doesn't exist. Let me count the ways. See, because you can name something whatever you want. But a thing is still a thing, no matter if you call the thing a that. It's still a thing. After the state files a petition to terminate, a juvenile court judge determines if it's the best interest of the child. If it's in the best interest of a child for the parental rights to be terminated. If the judge determines that a termination is in the child's best interest, the child's parents are no longer responsible and have no legal rights to their child. So all those 9 months meant nothing that you carried that baby, no matter what you went through, no matter what you're going through. If you are proven, and I'm going to tell you, they're really taking people's children and they're not even proving that the parents are unfit. They're not actually terminating people's rights. They're just giving them to other people and giving them the authority to be over their children. So it's a way to circumvent any system or contravene the law. It's so many different ways to skin a cat. And unfortunately, because we don't read, we don't know the differences in how things work. And we see them one way, but it's the other way. The parents lose the right to participate in the child's upbringing and to interact with the child in any way. After termination, the child permanently loses any legal connection to his or her natural family. Additionally, ASFA provides financial incentives to states that place children in adoptive homes. To accomplish this goal, Congress abandoned the social policy that placing Black children in Black homes was important to the development of Black children. Now, in the state of Texas, they'll do a whole lot of placing Asiatic children in the homes of the European, but only on a case of emergencies. In most cases, will a foster parent be able to foster a European child. Instead, through the Multi-Ethnic Placement Act, boy, they come up with these acts, don't they? MIPA and the Inter-Ethnic Adoption Act, Congress denied federal funding to agencies that place children according to their race or took race into consideration when making placement decisions. That works one way. Congress' justification for the change in the policy was that race-matching policies damaged Black children by not only denying them placement with white adoptive parents, but also by causing them to languish in foster care. And that's, since I got to that, going to be the end. We'll start on number 4 when we come back on Wednesday, and we'll be finishing up with the last part of gender, because then we've done gender, but then we got to do gender is the mental gender, so that we can handle the mental part of gender. We're almost at the end of the book. Again, the Kybalion by the 3 initiates, telling us of the study of the Hermetic philosophy of ancient Greece and Egypt, is a very, very, very good book that everyone should truly own. Again, I don't know, Maria, if you found that link that I had sent you before, so that we could put this in the chat. If anybody want to listen to, it's a gentleman who's reading, and he reads very well. He doesn't stumble and stuff like I do, but of course, that's what he does. We talk about those principles, which are Hermetic philosophies, and the 7 Hermetic principles are the principle of mentalism, the principle of correspondence, the principle of vibration, the principle of polarity, the principle of rhythm, the principle of cause and effect, and number 7 being the principle of gender. And like I tell you, once you start breaking down these as it's broken down, you will start processing things a little bit differently. And it may not happen overnight, but I guarantee you that you will want to. But take your time and just let it happen. And you will actually start seeing things a little bit differently. And it'll be much easier to handle craziness when you hear people blatantly lie on you or just say the most egregious things about you, the most flagrant things about you, blatant lies. It really makes you feel better as a human being. Because again, if you're going to learn how to live as an American, you must learn, number 1, there is no money. There is no money. And that went away when they took away the gold and the silver. There is no money. Anything you do, you must do in honor. You must do it in honor. And anything you learn, you must put in the work. I can tell you a lot of things, but until you seek it, you say, if you go by the word that's written in the Songbook, most call it the Bible. If you seek, you'll find. And you can only own something that you diligently seek. And it is imparted to you by the all. Some call God, some call Allah. Whatever you call it. In reading this book, the all is good enough for me. Everything we need, our Creator, which for me is our mom, but she's the only one that we actually seen create something. If you were able to witness a child after you, or if you gave birth, or anyone you know. We know that there was one time nothing was there, and then something appeared, and 9 months later, it arrived. And then for those next 3 months, because everything is done on a cycle of 12, we spend those 3 months bonding on this side. And then the baby begins to walk, to talk, to step away from us. Look for their little independence. Thank you, Russian Tony, for joining us. So this has been a beautiful ride for me. And, I guess y'all all may not know this, but, some know. This I do for me, really, I do. I love sharing what I've learned and giving. And this is a good way for me to do it. Everybody I know already have heard me say this time and time again and don't really want to hear it too much. But I just know I can't do what the greats before me did. but I can do my part. And this is my part. This is my purpose. I was created for this. And this is what I do. So I thank you guys for joining me. Come back on Wednesday. I'm always here on Wednesdays and Sundays as often as I can make it, 8:15 until I finish. We believe the children are our future. And that's how we're going to end this show. Thank y'all for all the likes. I greatly appreciate it. It means a lot to me because I don't have a lot of people. The engagement, some will look and laugh, funny, funny. But for me, it means the world. And it means something to you too, no matter how many. It means something. So I thank y'all very much. You all have a beautiful night. I'm getting ready to leave the Tiger's Den. Goodbye. Justice for CJ, a son, brother, father, uncle. Up drove the hearse Cadillac. A crowd of people gathered around, all dressed in black. And as they removed his body from the car, such pain she never knew had filled her heart. It happened on an early Saturday morning when the noise from the phone really disturbed her. She wasn't too sure at first just what the caller meant when they informed her that there had been an incident. Why, oh why, the sound of a mother's cry as she gathered herself and wiped the tears from her eyes. Somebody asked who was the next of kin. But oh Lord, it was the beginning of her end. March 17th, 2018. CJ will forever be 22 years young. Justice for CJ. In a mother's love, you will find everything. Everything's alright. To a mother's love, you are bound. You can rest on sacred ground. In a mother's love, you are free to dream because she sees what you can be. In a mother's love, you see the sun, enough for two, but you're one. In a mother's love, you can feel when something hurts. You can heal. Yes, a mother's love is real. You grow because she knows to let you go. Yeah, mama. Mama, mama, mama. Mother's love. Mother's love. Yeah. All right. A mother's love. And a mother's love never lies. She believes that you can fly with all of her might. A mother's love. Yay, mama.